Started at 7 o'clock and 25 seconds. Thank you. And the first item tonight is to go ahead and have our invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. And giving the invocation tonight, we have Associate Minister Dr. Mercuria Williams. She's standing in for Pastor Eldrin Morrison, and she is from Shaw Temple AME Zion Church. Everyone, please rise.
Be here. But Lord, we ask that you would give the persons in this place a sense of commitment to the city of Smyrna. We pray a special prayer for the council members, that they would be given wisdom and understanding by you, Lord, so that they would make just and fair decisions. We pray, Lord, that you would be in every detail of all of the plans and all of the discussions that will take place this evening. And then in adjournment, Lord, we pray that solid, good, strong decisions would have been made for this city so that the citizens and the place will be strong and good. These blessings we ask in the name of Jesus. Amen. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Dr. Williams, thank you so much. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
That's correct.
Excellent. Oh, good. Okay, starting off on a good note. And Dr. Williams is with Pastor Morrison at Shaw Temple AME Zion Church. They're located at 775 Hurt Road if you are looking for a church home. Thank you so much. Next on the agenda is agenda changes. We have one, and that is item 4A is going to be tabled. That is item 4A. It's a public hearing for zoning request Z16-002. It's a Camp Highland Road. The applicant has requested that it be tabled to March 20th, 2017. So when we get to item 4A on the agenda, that will be tabled. So we will not be having that public hearing tonight. Mr. Cochran, is that correct? Yes, so we will not be having the public hearing for that tonight. Item 3 is the mayoral report, and there is no report tonight. So we will go on to item 4, which is land issues, zonings, and annexations. For these public hearings, speaking time for the public hearings is related to the following issues, and it's limited to 5 minutes per person. Item 4A, 2016-40, I will ask Ms. Tammy Sadler-Jones to read that for us tonight.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Prime Interest Incorporated is requesting the rezoning of the subject property from GC to RTD conditional for the development of a 68-unit townhome subdivision at a density at 9.37 units per acre. This zoning request was approved by the Planning and Zoning Board at the October 10th, 2016 Planning and Zoning meeting by a vote of 6-0. A request has been made by the applicant to table this particular agenda item until March the 20th, 2017.
Thank you very much. This is in Mr. Fennell's Ward 7.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the request of the applicant, we're going to table this matter, but for those of you who came out to speak to the issue, there will be no public hearing on that matter tonight. We will have the public hearing on March 20th. However, I've held 2 public meetings, lengthy ones, and we've had a third one at Planning and Zoning back in October. This application has been on the agenda roughly, it's approaching a year now. It's 9 months or better. So there have been a lot of input items on this, and we'll continue to accept input. We've had conversations about all of the usual suspects: traffic management, public safety, sidewalks, crosswalks. All of those things are in the mix and have been in discussion. At the final package will include all of those items. So, Madam Mayor, it is my role to move to table item 2016-40, zoning requests Z16-002, rezoning from GC to RTD conditional for the construction of 68 townhomes units, 7.25 acre tract land lots 606 4710, 4730, 4750, 4760, 4770, and 4780 Camp Highland Road, Prime Interest, Inc. applicant.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, we have a motion and a second by Mr. Welch. Would everyone please vote? All right, it has passed. Actually, yes, it has passed 6-0. So moving on, we have item 4B. This is public hearing for zoning request Z16-018. Ms. Jones, would you read the background, please?
Waters Edge Group Incorporated is requesting the rezoning of a 3.35 acre tract from OI conditional to RTD conditional for a 26-unit townhome development at a density of 7.76 units per acre. The Planning and Zoning Board heard the rezoning at their November 14th, 2016 meeting, and they approved the request by a vote of 7-0. Community Development has reviewed the revised site plan, updated its staff recommendations, and they recommend approval. Ken Sudreth, our Community Development Director, is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Sudreth.
Thank you. This did go to the Planning Commission. It is coming to you with a unanimous recommendation for approval with conditions. This is at King Springs and South Cobb Drive. This is behind the former QT, now closed QT site. This is a site, thank you, Ms. Graham. This is a site that previously was approved for townhomes, had 20 townhomes on it, and was rezoned years ago to allow an office, medical office facility, and now they are requesting it be rezoned back to townhomes again. So we have community activity centers existing, and the proposed would be the same, so there's no change in our land use aspect associated with that. This is the proposed site plan. These are rear unit, rear loaded units. It's facing onto an open space with a private road that circles the circumference of it. Has one entrance that would be off of King Springs. Again, it's a private street with a 50-foot public utility easement that has been coordinated with the Public Works Department. It will be modified to as low as 45 regarding the sewer where necessary. There's the open space and amenities are outlined. There are 8 guest parking spaces. That shows you where the detention facility is. The setbacks would be 50 from the front, 35 from the north side, and 40 feet from the south side. They are asking for several variances. If you recall, in our work sessions in the past, we've talked about these setbacks. They have been increased or decreased accordingly to the point that staff feels comfortable that these are the minimums that are possible. So the side-to-side separation on the buildings goes from 30 to 26 feet. Staff is supportive of that. The side to front and rear, because we're talking about this sort of oval development here, goes from 40 to 30 feet. Again, staff is supportive. Both of those building separations have been decreased from where they were previously. They were larger when this first came in. We have always supported the reduction in the pavement width on the private street. We have coordinated with the fire department on that, and they are satisfied that it can be reduced from 24 feet to 20 feet. These are renderings of the townhomes. Just some more elevations. Photos of the subject property, which is indeed undeveloped. So staff's recommendation, as well as the Planning Commission's recommendation, is to approve this request with several conditions. The standard conditions that we talk about each and every rezoning meeting we have, dealing with the composition of the homes and the protective covenants, the open space, the stormwater, underground utilities, traffic, all of those would apply, as well as the stamped concrete paver, stamped concrete entrances, having to build a private street to city standards here, cannot bury debris on the site. They are required to have the decorative street lights, and they have to apply with our tree ordinance and our landscaping plans. Now, in terms of special conditions which deal directly with this site, we've already talked about the setbacks of 50 in the front, 35 in the side, 40 in the rear, as well as the building separations. Each townhome building, meaning the large connected pad, shall be no more than 6 units per acre. That is a requirement of our ordinance, so they have brought that into compliance. The townhome shall have 3-sided brick architecture. They will have 22-foot minimum driveway lengths. Each building will have a fire sprinkler system. There's a 10-foot landscape buffer on the northern and eastern property lines. We've already talked about the 50-foot public utility easement and the fact that it could be reduced to 45 feet where necessary. No stormwater facility, management facility can be located on any of those proposed lots. And as we always do, we bind what they are proposing to the site plan and the elevations that they have submitted to us, as well as the additional stipulations that they have submitted in their own letter as well. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And I'll leave you with the proposed site plan on the screen.
And you mentioned there'd be a limit of 6 buildings, 6 units per acre. I think you meant to say 6 units per building.
Right, thank you. It is. It's per building. That's what the ordinance requires, no more than 6 in any run of building.
I just wanted to clarify that. And it looks like that's what's reflected in the renderings.
That's correct. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Sedgwick or any additional comments you'd like to make?
Harry, I have a question. You said that one of the conditions was 3-sided brick architecture. Is that the buildings are facing the front, or would that be the rear, that around the drive that goes around the?
You can verify that with the applicant tonight, but it's my understanding that the 3 sides they're talking about would be the side that's facing the open space, and then the 2 sides. That the side where the driveway is for the drive-in would be the non-brick side.
Okay, thanks.
And this is a public hearing. If anyone here tonight would like to come speak on this item, it's item 2016, zoning request, Z16-018. If you would like to come forward and be sworn in. And Mr. Cochran will swear everyone in once they are all up front. And public hearing is limited to 5 minutes per person.
Good evening. I'm Howard Martin, 3435 Lee Street. I've been a resident of Smyrna for 53 years, and I've been living where I'm at now for 30 plus years. And this is going to impact me coming down King Springs. First of all, I want to know where the entrance and the exit is in reference to King Springs and South Cobb Drive. Where's the entrance and exit? Next of all, I want to know if an environmental test has been run on the old service station to see if there's any oil, gas, etc. contamination. Next of all, I want to know if you've contacted the petroleum company because you have petroleum lines coming through there. There is a list of subdivision down King Springs. You've got the park at King Springs, a good sized subdivision. You got the Southern Park subdivision. You got Ashford Woods apartment, which is next door to where this is going to be. And there's a lot of school traffic that come in and out there. And the reason I want to know where the exit and the entrance is to that, because when the old QT was there, it was a terrible traffic congestion. People had trouble getting out of there. You got Springwood Road homes, Kingsview Drive homes. You got Laurel Gate over on South Cobb Drive condominiums. That's between McCauley and King Springs. You got King Springs Shopping Center. You've got the Georgia Power substation there. I want to know if all this has been cleared with those people, the petroleum people, Georgia Power, Southern Company, ever which one you talk to. The Emory Clinic is still there. And I want to know if all the apartments or condos at Belmont Hills has been sold for this to be built. I want to know if all the apartments or condos, or what you want to call them, at Jonquil has been sold. I want to know if all of the condominiums on South Cobb between McCauley and King Springs have been sold. I'm strictly opposed to this because of the traffic situation we already have. I live on Lee Street, and I've already been shut down from going out of Lee Street north. It's hard to do that. I've been relegated to mostly going to South Cobb Drive and going anywhere I want to go. And I think the people in the subdivision that I live at Lee Street, Collier, and all are being just jam-packed with condominiums now. We don't need these. We already got condominiums. We got condominiums that's not even been leased yet. So why do we need to bring this up, even vote on it? I don't think this is a good place to have it. It was terrible when Quick Trip was there. And again, I want to know the environmental tests that have been run down there before you go forward with this. Thank you.
I see the applicant is represented by Mr. Garvis Sams. If you would like to speak to anything else you'd like to add.
I would like to just make my presentation. I wasn't expecting the opposition to go first.
I apologize. That's
no,
cold
that's
medicine.
fine. Well, first of all, good evening, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. My name, for the record, is Garvis Samson, and I represent the applicant Water's Edge Group, and I have with me today, this evening, Mr. Trevor Schunkweiler of Water's Edge. Also have with me the property owner, Mr. Alan Wills, who I zoned this property for back in 2006 for townhomes, and we have with us Mr. Matt Allen, who is the broker in the deal, and also our engineer, Mr. Jeff Smith. So, to the extent I'm not able to address and resolve and answer your questions, I'll be pleased to. But I think we've got enough folks to be able to do that. First of all, Mr. Sudworth has done, as usual, excellent job in presenting it to you and setting it up so you understand the context of development in which the property is situated. As shown on the revised site plan, it's a 3.35 acre tract of land located behind the former Quick Trip convenience store with fuel cells. To answer this past gentleman's question, the site plan is fairly evident. The point of ingress and egress is it's substantial remove in a northerly fashion along King Springs, and so you see how that property is oriented. The property is zoned O&I. When we rezoned it for towns in 2006, guess what the market did? Boom. And so they came back with an interim plan, particularly considering how active the medical facility nearby was at the time. But as it turns out, things have changed in that respect. Things have evolved in terms of the utilization of that hospital property. And townhomes are appropriate from a demographic perspective. We had no opposition at the Planning and Zoning Board hearing back in November. I've not heard from this gentleman that spoke this evening, but to the extent that you've got specific questions, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'll be happy to answer those. This is a proposal for 26 townhomes. We've reduced the density from the original proposal in order to focus the variances. We're asking for concurrent variances, as Mr. Sudworth put forth. And when I say focus those, I mean lessen them, so we had to drop the density in order to do that. We've got staff in a position where, as he articulated, staff is comfortable with that. We have handed out, or actually Ms. Graham has handed out to you, renderings, elevations depicting the architectural style and composition of the towns, both from a conceptual perspective and also from a technical perspective as well, in terms of actually labeling and showing you physically and specifically what's going to be there. With response to Ms. Wilkinson's question, the townhomes will be three-sided architecture. A lot of people have a hard time defining that, but equal treatment on all three sides, with the rear, and this is a rear-loaded product, being a little bit different, but still have the same architectural components, same architectural style, and just a little different type of approach. We submitted on February 6th a letter of agreeable stipulations and conditions. It was a revised one. It incorporated the concurrent variances. It incorporated the reduction in density. It submitted a revised site plan at the same time. The Gates, or Laurel Gate townhomes, which are a half mile north on South Cobb Drive, this is the same developer. About double the number of units there. But that's not one he zoned. That's one that he came in that said as a pipe farm for a while, and and he's done a remarkable job, and he wants to replicate that in terms of architectural style, price points, and the kind of demographic that he is approaching. So I think if you ask your staff, and certainly those of you, of course, certainly Mr. Stoner are very familiar with that particular development. We are amenable to all of staff's special conditions, all of staff's typical conditions, all of staff's extra conditions, everything in the staff analysis and zoning recs the staff has articulated and put forth. We're agreeable to all those. Taking it one step further, as I mentioned, on February 6th, along with a revised site plan, we submitted self-imposed conditions and restrictions outlining square footage, architectural style, signage, etc. This is going to be a gated community. The gate, as you can see, is on the very northern end of the property along King Springs. Will comply with your gated subdivision requirements. These are not condos. I'm not sure where that is coming from. These are townhomes. It's a different product than what a condominium would be, as are the ones, the Laurel Gate townhomes. They'll be the same type of product. Single family, attached, residential. These are not rental units. These are home ownership. A total of 26 townhomes at a density of 7.76. This is on 3.35 acres. The price points on these will range from the mid-300s to the low to mid-400s, for an average around $335,000 or $340,000 per home. I've told you about the architectural style and composition. If you look at the rear-loaded component of this, you can see that in the stipulations, we've agreed that the garages will be dedicated to having at least 2 vehicles be able to park in there at one time. Also, with respect to the driveway, the 22-foot in length, another 2 vehicles. Commensurate with our discussions with your fire department and Deputy Chief Grubal, we've added guest parking as well, not just from a fire safety and life safety perspective, but also with respect to, if you've ever been in a townhome development where someone's having a party, there's a paucity of guest parking. So we have 2 in the garage, 2 on the driveway for a total of 4, and then the extra guest parking as well. There'll be a master mandatory homeowners association, the submission of declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions with strict architectural controls consistent with with what you've seen and what's been shown to you. The HOA is going to be responsible for a lot, and that's what the demographic that is going to live here wants. And that is they're responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of all common areas. The streets, although built to the city's design and detail specifications, are still private streets. The preservation, tree preservation areas, as you can see, the centrally located amenity that meets the open space, exceeds the open space requirements. We originally started out with a gazebo type of facility, but in looking at the other developments which Mr. Schunkweiler's done, we think the benches integrated with fire pits and the meaningfully positioned pedestrian connectivity and walkability of the units is much better and will be used. Sometimes the gazebos are attractive at the beginning, but the first day they're built are the best day of their lives. So the signage components will also be cared for, as will the gated part of the subdivision entrance, which will not only be gated, but will be landscaped, irrigated, lighted, and then with signage which comports with your sign ordinance and regulations. The landscape plan will be submitted. All the yards, front, side, and rear yards will be sodded, as will the community area in the center of the project. Detention ponds, and you can see, or you saw on the site plan, on the central detention ponds is in the south portion of the property. It will be fenced and screened from view, part of the landscape plan that will be submitted during the plan review process. The fire department has very specific criteria for these type of, well, actually for all the developments that come through the city. And they have us formulate turning models so that the fire safety apparatus can go in and out of there with relative ease, and so that these homes, in sake of or in the condition of a fire, can be fought from both sides of the home. So we've complied with all those, and particularly with respect to truck and ladder number 4. And Mr. Grubaugh is going to be asking us to provide turning performance analysis report regarding that during the plan review. You know, we're required now by the Postal Service to have metal kiosks. Those will be ADA accessible. Also, the common community area as well as the guest parking will be ADA accessible. The variances Mr. Sudworth mentioned, we are asking for 3 concurrent variances. One that usually staff grants perfunctorily, and that's with respect to the width of the street, since it's private but still built to the city's design standards. So the side-to-side building separation will go from 30 to 26, and as Mr. Sudworth mentioned, the side to rear from 40 to 30, and they're fine with that. When you're talking about variances, you really need to establish that there is a hardship due and owing to a literal interpretation or enforcement of ordinance provisions, and in this case, we have, of course, traversing the southwestern corner of the property, a colonial pipeline easement that traverses it parallel to but separate from that. There's an access easement from the quick trip component to the multifamily component in the rear. And then thirdly, with respect to the positioning and the oddly configured shape of this property, we have detention, the main detention located in the southern part of the property, all of which are developmental obstacles or impediments that we think form the basis of a hardship, and staff agrees with that. The property is located in the Community Activity Center of the future land use map. We're not asking for a future land use map change. This is entirely appropriate from a land use planning perspective, your comp plan, your future land use plan, except for the 3 concurrent variances with every aspect of your ordinance. As I mentioned during the pendency of this application, although we've sought out opposition, particularly from contiguous adjacent property owners, we've not found any opposition until I heard the gentleman that spoke earlier. And not only do we have staff's recommendation for approval as your professionals, we have the unanimous recommendation of your planning and zoning board. So with all that being said, what you're seeing from a revised standpoint is not revised to the extent that there's any departure from what your planning and zoning board heard. You're hearing what they heard, absent a unit and focusing of the concurrent variances. So, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, if you or perhaps Councilman Stoner have any or any member have any questions, I'll be glad to respond to them.
Thank you. Does anyone on council have any questions for Mr. Sams? Okay, Corky.
I'm not sure that this really applies, but do you know of any results of environmental tests on the site from the old service station?
There are no implications with respect to the site from the service station because we've done a preliminary environmental one, but I will tell you that since my firm represents Racetrack, I really can't get into what Quick Trip has or hadn't done on their property. But I can tell you that there's no residual effect on our property.
Does community development know of any results of those tests?
We do not require that as part of a zoning application, Mr. Welch, on that. That would come due during plan review issue if there's anything associated with that.
I didn't think it would be really a part of it, but just curiosity.
But Mr. Sudreth, while you're still there, isn't it true that Quick Trip removed the tanks last fall? Was it last summer, fall? And ostensibly made the site inert?
Yes, that's correct.
Hey, one thing also, and I think we all know this, but it sounded maybe like somebody thought this was the Quick Trip site.
Yeah.
This is not the Quick Trip site. This is an adjacent site.
Thank you. I had the same thought too, that the Quick Trip site is not included whatsoever. The Quick Trip was a reference only to the fact of showing the location is behind that Quick Trip.
To clarify, Quick Trip they're leasing that property right now, correct? Quick Trip is, just to clarify for anyone in the audience who's wondering about the status of the Quick Trip.
That's correct.
Yeah, so they're leasing that space. It is in their interest to not have any other gas stations open up in that space because they want people to go to Quick Trip further down South Cobb Drive.
That's correct.
All right.
Just to
That actually was clarified a couple of times in the entrance and exit. There's one. It's on King Springs, and it's north of where the Quick Trip is. I'm sorry, I don't know if north is the proper direction, but it's above where the Quick Trip entrance is.
Apartments there. You got apartments there above it. Where is it coming in between old Quick Trip and the apartment?
Mr. Sams can answer that question.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. It's at the extreme northwestern part of the property before you get to the apartment complex, but certainly nowhere near the Quick Trip. And I don't want to, just because I represent Racetrack, I don't want to put in a plug for them, but that Quick Trip was one of the most difficult convenience stores to get in and out of, and maybe that's what this gentleman is referring to, but we are at substantial remove from that point of ingress and egress on King Springs.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak to the zoning issue?
Alex Backery, 3459 Shawnee Trail. Most of the accidents I see on South Cobb Drive are at King Springs. I don't understand why, but I carry all the way to Windy Hill. But there are a lot of accidents there. To see 8 per acre plus homes going in, 26 on 3.3 with right-of-way, absolutely is appalling to me. I've had many people say that they're building in this city and packing the houses in like, pardon the expression, sardines. That, I live on a half acre plus. I couldn't imagine seeing 4 to 8 homes on my half acre. I've got actually another half acre in the back of woods. So even an acre. 8 homes an acre at 26 homes. Where's the privacy? I don't understand it. The city is starting to look like an extension of Atlanta. This council has got to get away from this RD conditional, because I just don't understand all these I call them cluster junks that I would move in for nothing. Again, privacy is important, and I notice on the chart there, the tree ordinance. There isn't going to be a place to plant a tree with 26 homes on 3.3 acres, again with right-of-way. The city has got to, again, get away from this RD conditional. I just don't understand how people are going to have no privacy, and in 10 years, again, I've had a lot of people noticing we're overbuilding here. And the city is destroying so many trees. When you knock down 200- and 300-year-old trees, and the city attitude is, well, we plant another one 10 feet high. You don't replace something at 10 feet high that's not going to be growing for another 20 years. I don't know about anybody else, but I ain't going to be around in 20 years. But we're really the environment I'm concerned about on established trees in this city. And again, I find it outrageous that this is going to add to more traffic jam at King Springs, where they have so many accidents. A lady was killed a couple weeks ago there. But I see a lot of accidents, and this is just going to add to another congestion at that spot. And it's getting worse now in the city with traffic. I see it at 9, 10, 11 in the morning trying to go alternate out to go shopping. But again, this city council has got to get away from this RD conditional and be reasonable on houses. 26 homes on 3 acres with right-of-way is an eyesore, and I am absolutely against it, and I concur with the previous speaker on this issue, and I hope you all consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who's been sworn in who would like to speak to this public hearing? Mr. Sams?
I'm sorry, I hope I'm not out of order by doing this. The site was cleared, the site part was cleared years ago by Mr. Wills. If there's any growth on it at all, they're volunteer scrub pines. Evidently, Mr. Backery hadn't chose to go down there. But we do comply with the tree preservation and replacement ordinance, and so whatever we put in will be completely superior to what is on the site now, and will be planted in an orderly fashion and irrigated. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Are there any further is there any further discussion? Any questions from the council? This is in Mr. Stoner's ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And if Ken, if you can come back up, I would appreciate it. I think trying to go through several issues here very quickly. This property has been there for a very long time, has been sitting there. As mentioned, it was zoned at one point for townhomes prior to the recession. Then it was several years before that, and it was rezoned for O&I, office and institutional. And then, of course, that has not occurred, and we obviously have an application for rezoning back to townhomes. I think definitely on the issue of traffic, obviously our city engineer obviously reviewed these plans in the sense of those issues. If I'm not correct?
Yes, that is correct.
I have no doubt that if we had an office building there, it would probably have a bigger impact in the sense of traffic coming in and out of that location, just assuming the intensity and the density of such a building. So I think from that standpoint, this is a less of an impact from a traffic standpoint. Though, as I think we all understand when it comes to traffic, specifically, that is not a reason to deny rezoning in the sense of how it works under state law. So as I've said, this proposal that came to us, I have to say the applicant did a very good job sitting down with us, because the initial proposal, I think, was just a pretty standard, stick in as many units as you can and everything else. So obviously I was not happy with that. Went back to the developer, asked for something a little different. And the fact that the neighbors of this site are a Georgia Power substation, the back end of a closed Quick Trip, and an apartment complex are its neighbors. And so the idea was, how do we create something for the folks who live at this site that is going to have a nice amenity? And that's when we came up with the concept that y'all saw this evening, where we created a very large open space in the center with the homes concentrated around that. So I just want to make that comment that, responsive to us and asking these questions. Also the problem with the concern, because you actually have a pipeline, which creates issues and the ability to locate these units. So all that to be said, I think, staff working with the developer, obviously our planning and zoning board approved this 7-0, and at this point I'm very happy with the results in the sense of what the developer did in response to the city's request and comments. At this point,
Mr.
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ken.
Can I just make one more point for the record? We've talked about variances and setback on many requests, especially in the last couple of years. You've referenced, and so did Mr. Sams, the other unique features associated with this having to do with the pipeline and other related easements. That is one of the other reasons that staff is supporting this, because of those other issues which are present, which are not normally present in other requests. Because of that, it does change the dynamics associated with this request, so that we had asked, and Mr. Sams correctly stated that we went from 27 to 26 units because we felt we needed to get as close to the minimum needed waiver/variance as possible, given the circumstances associated with this lot. And because of all that, then staff felt we could support that. Again, there are unique features on this site.
And that is correct. That's exactly the discussion at the time of why we would even consider allowing these variances. And again, the property owner was willing to work with us, the developer was willing to work with us in the sense of the reduction to make those variances as small as possible, considering the situation of the easements that are on the property.
Doug, I want to ask Ken one question, if I could, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because of where that's located on King Springs Road, how much of a setback do they have to have for those gates and everything?
Oh, they will be as far off of the right-of-way as possible to allow the stacking distance to occur, so they can, click the button or whatever the mechanism they choose to have to open those gates.
Like Forest Hills or something like that?
So that they're not backing up, obviously, onto King Springs. So they are those gates are almost to the point where, if you look at the site plan, where the road actually, you have you either can go straight or you can go to the right. Those gates are just on the outside of that split. So once as soon as you go through the gates, you've got to decide, am I going straight or am I going to the right?
Thank you.
Any more questions or discussion? All right. Mr. Stoner?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At this point, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of 4B 2016-432, zoning request for Z16-018, rezoning from OI conditional to RT conditional for the development of 26 townhome units on 3.35 acres, land lot 528 at King Springs Road and South Cobb Drive by Water's Edge Group.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Will everyone please vote? All right, the vote is 6-0 in favor. The motion has passed. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item 4C. This is also a public hearing. It is item 2017-22, zoning request Z17-001. It's a rezoning from general commercial in R15 to general commercial for a 10,000 square foot commercial building. Ms. Jones, would you give the background, please?
Yes. Raise 5 Star LLC is requesting to rezone the property located at 2264 Atlanta Road from GC and R15 to GC for the development of a one-story, 10,000 square foot commercial building. This rezoning request was heard by the Planning and Zoning Board at their January 9th, 2017 meeting, and it was approved by a vote of 6-0. Community Development recommends approval, and Mr. Sudworth is here to also present on this item as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sudworth. If you would share with us more information.
Raise 5 Star is an existing business that is relocating from Windy Hill over to Atlanta Road at the intersection of Belmont Circle. This did, as Ms. Jones stated earlier, that it's coming out of the Planning Commission with a unanimous recommendation for approval. As you can see on the screen, part of this property is already zoned general commercial, that's highlighted in the red. The entire site is outlined in sort of a aqua blue color. The second lot, which was how the property owner purchased this, was under the same ownership. It just happened to be 2 lots associated with that. The second lot that is not red is a residential classification that's known as R15. So what they are in essence are asking for is the ability to change that residential lot from R15 to GC so that all the property that they own would indeed be the same. And if you look at the screen, you will see that there's a GC zone property directly north on the opposite corner of Belmont Circle and Atlanta Road that has the same depth of commercial that's being proposed here. There's currently a self-serve car wash on there. You can see an outline of the building in the aerial photo. They will take down the car wash with the exception of one area that that's sort of being used for their existing offices for the car wash on that, and they'll incorporate that into their building. Because of the residential classification associated with this property, there's a slight change in the land use plan from on that section from community activity center, from suburban residential to community activity center, which would match the other part that's in the red. Again, even though this is 2 properties, it's under one ownership and is intended to be developed as one track. This is the proposed site plan. You can see a heavy dashed line going through the property that indicates the difference between the residential and the commercial properties, with the Atlanta Road to the bottom of the screen and Belmont Circle on the right side of the screen. The setbacks are shown above. Total floor area would be a little over 7,000 square feet. They've got about 5,600 square feet planned for the package store, with another 1,369 square feet as additional tenant space. So this ultimately would be a multi-tenant building. They do have a phase 2 that's planned, would be another 2,800 square feet. Stormwater detention, you can see, would be underground in the parking lot. Overall, they have 40 parking spaces. And these are the proposed elevations. Subject property. You can see the existing car wash that's there. You can also see the area that's sort of already blocked in. That's the area that it's our understanding that they will try to incorporate into the new building. Again, adjacent properties. Again, staff's recommendation as well as planning commission's recommendation is for approval with the following conditions. Again, under standard conditions, the stormwater management, the underground utilities, the traffic improvements, no burying of debris, and then following the tree ordinance and the landscape plan. And if I can just deviate just for a second on the tree ordinance, since that issue came up in the last, I want to make sure that everybody in the audience, as well as who's watching this online or on TV, the tree ordinance is a document that the city has adopted. You don't get the choice of whether you follow it or not. You have to follow the ordinance. Now, you may not like what the tree ordinance says, but we don't flip-flop around on what we do with our with our sites. And you have to meet the requirements. Even if you have no trees on the site, you still have to plant trees, or you have to put trees into, you have to pay into a tree bank. But I felt that was important enough, given the discussion we just had off the other request, that when we say you got to follow the tree ordinance, what we're saying is there are standards already in place that the city has adopted for every development that you have to follow. Now, under the special condition, we've talked about the setbacks. The dumpsters have to have the three-sided brick, obviously, and then an opaque gate in the front. Any of your utility boxes or HVAC components have to be screened from public right-of-ways. Again, stormwater improvements are required, and as whatever the city engineer deems necessary as well. You have to deal with your water and sanitary sewer improvements for the Public Works Director. And a small amount of right-of-way may be required as determined once we get further into this request at the plan review stage. Sidewalks are going to be required with a 2-foot grass strip, and again, as 16 and 17 outline, they are restricted to the plans that they have submitted to us, as well as the architectural drawings with that. And with that, I will put this back on the site plan and answer any questions you may have.
And I'll also note that this is in Ward 3, and Mr. Welch has agreed to bring this motion forward tonight in my stead, since I am not able to do that. But I did want to see if the applicant is here and if he would like to.
The applicant is here.
Okay, great. And while he's coming up, I also wanted to comment. I've received several emails, and I really appreciate everyone from Ward 3 and from Ward 5 who's reached out to me. I've been a little bit under the weather for the past few days, so I've not been able to respond the way I would like to, but I have read all of those emails and taken them to heart, and I think hopefully your questions and concerns will be addressed during, as this conversation proceeds. And just where everyone, yeah, and actually, if anyone would like to, if you would like to speak to this item, this is a public hearing. I'd like to invite you forward now to be sworn in.
My name is Samuel Kimani. I'm the project architect. It has been mentioned, the owner is currently has a facility on Windy Hill, and has to relocate from that location to to the Atlanta Road location. The existing property is the area of the property that we intend to develop is currently paved. Most of it is currently paved. For the first phase, we're intending to add less than 2,000 square foot of a new paved area. We intend to use the already paved area. We have agreed to, as part of our plan review documents, you're going to provide landscape plans to comply with the city's requirement for landscaping and tree replacement. We are going to we have talked to the city engineering already regarding the stormwater management, and he has advised us to prepare a hydrology study. We're in the process of working on that. We haven't completed that yet. The site has a detention system. We just need to make sure that it is going to be sufficient for the proposed development. One of the concerns we had here is this is a package store, and it had to be a certain distance from residentially zoned property. And that sort of made our design such that the entrance to the package store had to be at a certain location in order for us to be able to comply with that, the 300 feet requirement from the entrance to the package store to the nearest residential zoned property.
Right, and so that's why the entrance is at the southernmost end of the building, correct?
Yes, ma'am. The other tenants, property owner is talking to a few people. It might be a dentist. We really don't know who they're going to be, but they're going to be just general business.
Well, and to that end, because I know that you have given me your assurances, and you've also talked to, I know, several folks in the neighborhood who have reached out to me that you want to attract good quality businesses. As you know, and as everyone in the audience knows, the city has spent and I'll interject here also, I'm going to talk a little bit more than the mayor would probably talk, only because this is in Ward 3, and I have been working on this issue for several months with the applicant. But I to that end, you have given a lot of the residents, and you've given me your assurances that you do want to have quality tenants coming into your building that you're building here. And to that end, the city, we have spent a tremendous amount of time, and we've invested, everyone in this area has invested years in waiting for Belmont Hills, for example, to be redeveloped. And we're investing a tremendous amount of money into the Windy Hill Boulevard concept. And so obviously we want to see quality businesses go in here. And I'd like to speak to that for a moment, to say that you have agreed to several other additional stipulations and some restricted businesses. And if we could, Mr. Sudworth, if you wouldn't mind coming forward and reading those that we've agreed to, so that the residents know what businesses are going to be precluded from coming into this building.
I gave my list to Corky.
I'm sorry about that. We have one list that we're showing.
Back. I will bring it back. But for the record, and for the audience, what the Mayor Pro Tem is asking is the possibility of restricting uses to the so that the following cannot occur. You would restrict out automobile sales and repair, automobile car washing, adult novelty stores and adult entertainment. Pawn shops would be excluded out. Check cashing stores would be out. Truck rental, sales and service and repairs would be out. Same with motorcycle sales and service and repair. Tire sales and service would be out, and massage parlors would be out. So that if you want to include this list, you would need to make that part of the motion.
Pardon me, Mr. Sudworth, while you're still there, as you read through there, I might have missed it. Did you say pawn shops?
Pawn shops would be excluded.
Okay, thank you.
All those conditions are agreeable with us.
Okay. And I also wanted to, you've said that in phase 1, you don't really plan on building on, you're going to be adding a little bit of parking in the back, but with your total plan, I know with the site plan that we've seen submitted, it looks like most of the vegetated area that is at the back of the lot that is now currently residential is going to remain so. Is that your plan?
That's our plan as a phase 1. The only condition the only thing might be if we do get a tenant right away who would be able to take up the area that is faced as future, the 2,800 square feet, then we might come to you and ask for us to be able to do it as one development instead of a phased development. In which case, then the building is going to be about 10,000 square feet, and it's going to require about 55 parking spaces. And then the area that is marked as future parking would have to be part of the development at that time.
With the area marked as future parking, there's still a large it looks or a significant portion of the lot that's going to remain as it is today.
There is
Okay.
a significant, and one of the interesting thing with the property is that we have to be 50 feet anyways from the residential parking.
Right.
And that property is just narrow. It's going to be hard to do anything in the back area.
Okay. Thank you. This is a public hearing. At this time, I know several folks were sworn in. If you would like to come forward and introduce yourself, you are limited to 5 minutes per person.
My name is Kyle Kirkman. I live at 941 Woodland Trail. I live about 600 yards from the proposed site. I think it's laughable. It really is kind of laughable. We have a massage parlor there today. We have a motorcycle shop already there today. We have a used car lot that works out of the Metter office complex there. We have a repair shop that advertises next door to it. So for you to exclude all that on the new development, why don't you preclude, oh, by the way, we have a motorcycle shop as well next door to the proposed site. I find it laughable that we are sitting here actually having this conversation. Within 3 miles of this proposed site, there are 6 with this current location, there are 6 liquor stores. We have one liquor store that is 0.9 miles from the current site. Do we really need another liquor store in a residential area? 70, I'll give you some statistics. Harvard University, Yale University, Princeton, and the University of Chicago have all done studies. 76% of the crime that comes within a 1-mile area of a liquor store is vandalism, theft by taking, robbery, burglary, and murder. Do we really want that in our community? You just said it a second ago. You've invested millions of dollars in Belmont Hill Shopping Center. You've built $1 million elementary school there. Do we really want the liquor store moved from its current location to the front of a residential location? Is that what we want to send the community? Is that what you, as our city leaders, want to send the outside community? Is, hey, we're rebuilding Smyrna, but we're going to continue to do the same thing that we continue to do. Put a liquor store in the middle of a subdivision, in my subdivision. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want it. I don't want it at all. I don't want the crime. Now, for the last 2 weekends, and I've alerted Susan to this, we've had gunshots come into my community, we've reported it, nothing's been done. And for you to sit here and say that you're going to not allow all these things, we have a massage parlor 50 feet from the proposed site. Let's stop thinking for the almighty dollar and start thinking for the community that you folks are trying to rebuild. Put us first. We've made an investment in this community. You've made an investment. I'm pro-business, but we don't need a liquor store, another liquor store 0.9 miles from this one. That doesn't need to happen. Put us, the citizens, first and our safety first, because I look at the proposed site plan. There's no traffic light being put in. I've spoken to the city engineer several times. I said, we need street lights, sidewalk, and a traffic light. It's not proposed. So we have 3 school buses that go up and down that road. Now we have a 10,000 square foot office building and no street light. I've spoken to Susan about it. No traffic signal, excuse me. I am steadfast against it. I will fight till the bitter end that this will not be built in my neighborhood. Thank you.
Mr. Sedgwick, just for a moment, I would like to, and if someone can pull up on the screen the overlay map that shows the red general commercial, where if someone wanted to tomorrow, they could put in a package store without having to go. I just want to clarify that point. So I think that adding these restrictions where there currently aren't restrictions for anything else zoned general commercial like that is, to my mind, going fairly far to make sure this is something that it's unusual to have general commercial right next to residential. There aren't many locations like this in the city. The other businesses that you mentioned along Windy Hill Road, I know that you're probably familiar with the Windy Hill Boulevard concept, so you know that landscape is going to be changing rather dramatically over the next few years. But I do want to note real quickly, we see this map here, and so you see where the red is. Those don't require any kind of zonings or anything. If someone wanted to put any kind of novelty shop there tomorrow, they could do that. That wouldn't need to come through the city. I just wanted to clarify that point.
But as a citizen, why do we continue to all the time with the city of Marietta, Cobb County, and the city of Smyrna constantly wanting to put our people to come to
Sir, if you would like to come and have additional public comment, you had a little bit of time left on the clock, but I do want to clarify that this isn't a rezoning for the liquor store. This is rezoning the residential to the general commercial, and it's a currently permitted use in the general commercial.
I'm steadfast against it.
I appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else for the public hearing who would like to come and speak?
My
Thank
name is
you.
Don Weidler. I live on Woodland Trail, which runs off of Belmont Circle. No one has said anything about there's 2 school bus stops on Belmont Circle. And you say, well, in the morning, that's fine. But the kids got to come back at night. Kids walk down Belmont Circle from school to the apartments on Woodland Trail. You don't have enough room on Belmont Circle for a truck and a car hardly go by, let alone the sidewalks. You have people that walk down Belmont Trail in the dark of night, no street lights. It's hard to see them. I just think it's a bad move, and I'd vote against it.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak regarding this matter?
Hello, my name is Kyle Smith. I live on Woodland Trail. I want to talk, I guess, about first thing is one of the factors that you all look at for the rezoning analysis, and that is number, I believe it's 8 here. Under any proposed zoning classification, whether the use proposed may create a nuisance or is incompatible with existing uses in the area. I think the answer, well, I got the answer here from the memo from the Development Committee. It says that the proposed use should not create a nuisance to existing uses in the area due to the fact that the surrounding area is also comprised of similar commercial uses. And I mean, first of all, I'm strictly against the liquor store and the proposal, everything about it. But to say that, it's comprised of similar commercial uses, I mean, it just seems like no research was done as to the existing businesses that are already there. You have a church, you have a Compass self-storage, you have Atlanta Road Body Shop, you've got a small grocery store, small electronics store, you've got the Cycle Exchange, you've got the car wash, existing car wash, and then the professional building right across from Belmont Circle. And so all of these businesses are primarily, they close in the early evening. You've got a liquor store that you're trying to put in the front of a neighborhood whose hours extend to 10:45 during the weekdays, 11:45 on weekends. This is a quiet, tranquil corner of Smyrna. And what you're doing is creating additional traffic, car and foot traffic there. You've got ingress and egress right onto Belmont Circle. That's not going to be closed off so that they can, enter only from Atlanta Road. So Belmont Circle is already used as a cut through between, Windy Hill and then Atlanta Road. So you're going to increase traffic there. I believe it's going to bring, loitering, as the other Kyle had mentioned. It's going to bring crime, I think, to the area. If you go by Ray's Liquor Store as it exists now, on different nights, on the weekends, it's packed. Spoke to Susan about it. She's seen the same thing, where you've got maybe 7, 8, 9 car spaces. I'm not sure, parking spaces. Now you're talking about adding 40 in front of a neighborhood. That's going to increase traffic. That's going to probably increase loitering. I mean, I've got recent video of 3 gentlemen loitering on the business right next to Ray's Liquor Store at a business that's closed, closed for the evening, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. I'm not going to stereotype anyone, but I don't know what they were doing, and if you look at the proposed map and the way it's structured, these gentlemen are going to be on the Cycle Exchange property if they're loitering there. They're going to be on the residential property that's in back of the new proposed site. And, why do you want that there? We don't want it there. I mean, as residents, Kyle mentioned the gunshots. And I heard them too. So I'm not saying I'm going to correlate the two, but as the studies show, crime happens around liquor stores. Also, there's no significant buffer between this liquor store and the residential properties in this area. I spoke to Ken about this a little bit. He said that If I recall, that study wasn't really done as far as looking at other liquor stores in Smyrna. And, I went on Google, checked out the maps. I'll just list a couple of them for you. You have Stop Beverages, R&L Package on Roswell Street, Leroy's Liquors on South Cobb Drive, Royal Package, which I believe is actually 0.7 miles from the proposed site on Atlanta Road, and Smyrna Liquors on Spring Road. None of these liquor stores back up to single-family residential properties, okay, like this one does. And so, why is this one going to be the first? I guess that's my time is coming to an end. But again, I think that this type of business as a liquor store should be on the restricted list because it fronts a neighborhood. Think about property values. If I was driving by, this area, saw homes that I might want to purchase, saw people hanging out, loitering at a liquor store, it's open till 11:45 at night, I wouldn't want to buy there. So thank you.
Mr. Soto, there have been some questions about some of the zoning categories. Can you speak to that, please?
In terms of liquor stores with regard to spatial separation, there's no requirement in the ordinance that says you can only have one and it's got to be X number of feet apart. I understand what they're saying, but there isn't, and you don't have any authority to all of a sudden say we're just going to create some separation requirement on that. It's not in the ordinance regarding that. Again, and I think everybody understands the uses on the front of this property that are in the red that we talked about are already there. It is already a right. The reason that the back of this property is coming in for rezoning, and that's what we're talking about here, is because it was sold as one block to them and they want to get it all under the same classification. The issue of whether you want a liquor store there or not, in theory, a liquor store could go in any of those properties that currently exist as red, including the car wash. The zoning doesn't have to change to allow or not change to preclude a liquor store. It has the ability to occur there. The issue is, are we going to allow the next property, which is under the same ownership, the same rights as what's across the street that already has a red classification, which is a general commercial classification at the same depth that's already there? So we're treating similarly situated property similarly with that. So that is the rationale that's used for this. We don't single out the fact that it's a liquor store. We are looking at the issue is the corridor, a commercial corridor, and that's what was referenced in our report, is that, yes, there are other. This isn't the only GC lot. This is a corridor of general commercial uses, which obviously the gentleman spoke to. That's what that references when we mentioned that in the report.
Thank you. I know Ms. Wilkinson has some questions. Would you,
Mr.
would-
Sutton?
While you're still there, if you had a question for Ken, sir?
Yes, thank you. Is there, as far as the phase 2, is there a time limit on when that would be developed, or is it as far as
Not on the phase 2.
So will it be able to continue? Not that there's anything wrong with the car wash, but will it be able to continue that section since it is part of the bays of that?
I don't think there's any desire to continue the car wash. I think they're just saving that one end of that to ultimately tie it in.
Okay, I was just wondering if it would.
That's my understanding. But
okay.
you may want to get more clarification from the applicant exactly on that.
Okay, in the phase Okay, and then the other thing I was thinking, you mentioned that it could be a liquor store as it is now.
Yes.
But I guess I don't understand that because it doesn't meet the distance requirements now.
Sure it does.
Without rezoning the property, it doesn't.
Where you locate the door.
It's where you locate the door, so it does meet the requirements.
It would, the way they have proposed the orientation of the first building and where the door is, because that's where we measure. That could go in. Now, it may not go in, Ms. Wilkinson, the size. Obviously, if the zoning doesn't go in, it won't have 40 spaces. But in terms of a building being able to go on that site, which is already zoned commercial, yes, they could definitely get it on there, and it would definitely meet separation requirements.
Okay, I see. And then the other question, just out of curiosity, the development at Belmont Hills on the corner there, the new development, Belmont, those commercial spaces on the front corner, would they be able to have a package store in that location? I'm just curious.
You talk about in Belmont Hills,
the
new center?
Yeah, on those commercial spots on the front.
In theory, they would, but remember, that's over a plan. There's a master mixed-use plan for that site.
That's a different zoning category than general commercial.
I'm just wondering, though, if it is or not.
But in theory, general commercial type uses are allowed there. But what is there now are restaurants, some of which serve alcohol.
And serving alcohol as opposed to having a package store. And that zoning originally was many years ago, but I was here for that rezoning. I think for one or two of them, and I think that there are some restricted uses with that mixed use category.
Yes, there are.
Mr. Sudworth, while you're there, if it's okay, I have an observation and then 3 questions, 2 of which I'm sure you can answer, maybe one not. The observation is I appreciate Kyle 1 and Kyle 2. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, and the sensitivity of the neighborhood. But this is a commercial corridor, is it not?
Yes.
And the use is allowed. And I think Kyle 1, I didn't catch your last name. I'm sorry, but you observed some of the uses that are currently there now. That we can't wantonly go and eliminate them, but this applicant has agreed to preclude any of those in that category. It would seem like that's an improvement over potential use in the future, and would meet, I would think, if I were a resident wanting to at least restrict those areas, not having the ability to have that type of business in the future. That's just an observation. So the questions, aren't there a limited number of package store licenses in the city? My recollection in doing the paper for the annual permit, it's like 9 in the city.
It's something like that, Mr. Fennell, but that's just the way the market has determined.
Right, but there are only 9 in the entirety of the city. That was an observation.
Like that.
And then the question is, this contiguous piece of property, it falls within the purview of I'm not a zoning professional, you are, to expectations around this particular adjacent, adjoining, and co-owned piece of property as a legitimate request, typically in a marketplace, for an adjacent property to fit, if it fits, as this one does, with the frontage on both sides of commercial property for that extension.
That's correct.
Okay.
Are there any additional questions or discussions?
Of a minute, right?
Yes.
My question, I'd like to add then no vape shops then to the current list of excluded or precluded in the shopping center as well. Vape, smoking shops, tobacco shops, excuse me. It also, too, says here in your staff comments that the proposed rezoning and development should not have any adverse effect upon the existing use or usability of nearby properties. So if we rezone this section, that is impacting negatively upon our current location. It's negatively impacting both from a traffic standpoint, from a safety standpoint. Again, the gentleman mentioned, We have 2 school buses that go up and down that. We have no traffic lights. So you're going to rezone this one section, that's fine. You're going to add 40, 35, or 40 additional parking spaces. That's going to impact the negative. That's going to impact our location negatively. So what are we going to do? What's the plan?
Thank you, everyone who spoke tonight and who reached out. I'm going to ask one more time, are there any more questions or discussion from the council?
I'd like to ask a
Okay.
question of the owner regarding the smoke shops. Is that a permissible, something that we can prohibit? Very good.
Well, I'm the owner for the race package for Windy Hill 1003.
Speaking to the.
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm the owner of the race package 1003 Windy Hill. And
Can you state your name? I'm sorry.
Oh, Sirac Casa. And what's the question?
The last gentleman came up and asked if we would add the prohibition of a smoke shop or vape shop at that location as well. Is that a problem?
I don't have a plan at all. What I mean is not, I didn't expect a smoke
Right.
shop myself either. So, no,
It's not a problem then?
no problem.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Let me make sure I understand. So you would agree to a condition that you couldn't have that use on the property?
Well,
If you got the rezoning as a condition of the zoning?
well, I have right here, I think you guys, you got it, this one. I agreed with this. And the smoke shop is, I don't know the difference. What I have right now is the same thing as go with the liquor. I sell cigarettes. But the smoke shop is totally a little bit different figure.
Yeah, I would actually have to defer to Mr. Sudreth or Mr. Martin on how exactly that. I don't know how we currently classify that type of business. I know exactly the type of business you're talking about. I just don't know what the legal classification is for that kind of business. Would that fall under adult novelties? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, that means.
Yeah, I don't know if we could split hairs and say you can sell cigarettes, but you can't sell electronic cigarettes.
Do we have a different zoning classification for it? Obviously this is a package store that sells tobacco products, and that's fairly commonplace. And I'm the only other vape store. I'm sure there are several throughout the city, but I'm thinking of the one on Spring Road. Sir, we have to make sure this is legal and correct because it's in the interest of the citizens to not get sued. So I do want to just specify. I don't know how we break that out with business licenses or zoning classifications.
Yeah, because it's a GC classification, there's a whole range of uses that, including what we've just talked about, that would be there. In that use, if somebody came in and just said, all I'm going to sell are cigarettes of all different types and styles, then that would still be a permitted use. I'm not trying to put our attorney on the spot, but I'm not sure we can split.
The best you could do probably if you wanted to take a stab at it is you could prohibit the any proprietor of a store marketing the store as a tobacco store or a vape shop. So it'd be more in the marketing.
So that
and which isn't to say that you can't sell a carton or a packet of cigarettes, but the difference would be, the intent would be that you wouldn't have a sign out that says vape shop, and you wouldn't market the place as a vape shop. That's kind of a new industry that you see at places, kind of a sub-tiered type business.
It's probably something we should, in the future, not at this meeting, but in the future, talk about having a specific category for, because this will probably come up again.
Yeah, but if you wanted to add that as a zoning condition, that they not market their that no business operating from the place market themselves as a vape shop, you could do that, and then we could fight about it later if we had to.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Wilkinson, I believe you had an additional question?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. I was wondering if the applicant could speak about the phase 2 of the building and like when you're, how long do you think it'll be before you develop that? Or are you gonna, just any information about that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is the phase 1, what you see right now. We're not finished exactly yet, and probably we take them out the whole car wash figure and the whole figure, out, and just because try to change the front one. And me and my architecture guy, we're going to talk about it tonight because we were waiting for until this decision. And what's the next question?
I think that was what I was interested in about the future phase 2 of that part of the building. And
yeah, we're going to change it a little bit more and, future style, a little bit look good.
If I could ask a question, how long have you been in business in Smyrna?
It's coming almost 10 years now, 9 something.
All's good?
Oh, so far good.
Okay.
Any more questions? Discussion? We're ready. All right, Mr. Welch, thank you for handling this for me tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 2017-22, zoning request Z17001, rezoning from GC and R15 to GC for a 10,000 square foot commercial building with 1.1 acres of land, lot 491 at 2264 Atlanta Road, Ray's 5-Star LLC, with the following prohibitive uses: auto sales repair, automobile wash service, adult novelty stores and adult entertainment, pawn shops, check cashing stores, truck rental sales, service or repairs, motorcycle sales, service or repairs, tire sales or services, massage parlors, and any business marketing itself as a vape or smoke tobacco sales shop.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second to remind everyone the caveat that, as I understand it, the staff has fully vetted, the planning and zoning has vetted, and I assume the police department has vetted this vendor relative to, I'm getting an affirmation, and have made recommendations acceptable to the applicant for those restrictions and limitations on this acquisition. I second.
We have a motion and a second. Would everyone please vote? That motion has passed 5-1. Moving on, the next item is item 6, which is 6A, formal business. We have one item. I will note that this is not a public hearing, but if you would like to speak to anything on the agenda, you can participate in public and citizen input, which is item 11. But 6A is formal business 2017-69, approval to enter into a 1-year contract with Barrow Wrecker Service as a sole provider of city-requested wrecker services. Ms. Jones, the background, please.
Thank you. Historically, Smyrna has utilized Barrow and Howard's wrecker service for towing. On February 6, 2017, the Mayor and Council authorized staff to terminate the existing memorandum of understanding with Howard's for cause to be effective March 1st, 2017. This termination leaves Barrow Wrecker Service as the sole provider. A request for qualifications was done. Barrow Wrecker Services RFQ was determined to be the most advantageous to the city. This new contract would carry a 1-year term. Staff does recommend approval, and Deputy Police Chief Robert Harvey is here in case you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Would Deputy Chief Harvey like to come forward and talk? Would you like to say anything, or you don't have to? Yeah, I think we've covered. Are there any questions or any discussion from the council?
I just want to acknowledge former Chief Stan Hook has joined us tonight. Thank you, Chief, and welcome.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Mr. Norton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just say that as Public Safety Chair, I've got the utmost confidence in our public safety staff recommendations regarding day-to-day operations to deliver the best services to our citizens. As Ms. Jones said, we voted on this unanimously after lengthy discussion at a previous meeting. The full council did, to terminate that contract and award this is the new contract awarded to Barrow. We have 1 year to evaluate, at the end of the year, evaluate performance. And it's my pleasure to make the motion to approve item 6A, 2017-69, approval to enter into a 1 year contract with Barrow Record Service as a sole provider of city-requested record service.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would everyone please vote? All right, and item 6A has passed with 5 yeas and 1 nay vote. Moving on to item number 7, which is commercial building permits. We have none. The consent agenda, item 8. Ms. Jones, would you please read the consent agenda for tonight?
Yes. Item A, approval of the February 6, 2017 Mayor and Council meeting minutes. B, approval of the February 6, 2017 pre-council meeting minutes. C, approval of the February 2nd, 2017 CAL agenda meeting minutes. D, approval of the intergovernmental agreement for the title ad valorem tax between the City of Smyrna and Cobb County, and authorize the mayor to sign any related documents. This percentage for 2016 was 40.55%. This change will increase the city's portion by 5.06% to 45.61%. Item E, approve a change order in the amount of $43,852 to the contract with Peachtree Construction Services for the installation of an elevator and framing for the Reed House project, and authorize the mayor to sign and execute all related documents. Item E, authorization to amend the cell tower lease agreement between the City of Smyrna and SBA Network Services, LLC, and authorize the mayor to sign any related documents.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
We have a motion. Are there any questions or comments about the consent agenda? I do want to note quickly that this is not item F is not for a new cell tower. This is just amending an agreement we have for an existing cell phone tower. And do we have a second?
Can I speak about one of the items?
Yes, Ms. Wilkinson, you may.
The one with the change order for the for Peachtree Construction for the elevator. I just wanted to clarify, because I believe that the funds are just being moved from CDGB funds to this, so it's not additional money that's being spent.
That is correct.
And I
Yes.
wanted to make that clear.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. So we have a motion and a second. Would everyone please vote?
Good point.
The consent agenda has passed unanimously, 6-0. Next item is committee reports, and I will start tonight with Mr. Norton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have a committee report, but I do want to make a comment around the proposed church development at Atlanta Road in Campbell. I've met with the representatives of the church, heard a lot of concerns and comments about this proposed development over the last several weeks. It passed planning and zoning, I think earlier I guess last week, 5-1. We were able to, we heard your concerns, and there's no 15-foot buffer, there's a 50-foot buffer, as a lot of the citizens requested. There's a solid fence that's been recommended that's 6 foot, so that went along with some of the concerns as well. And then I think they're looking at the lighting right now to make sure that it doesn't impact residents along Argyle Drive and in Argyle Estates in general. So we're doing our best to work with the proposed new neighbors and also make sure that the impact is as minimal as possible on the neighbors in Argyle Estates. Just wanted you to know I've heard your concerns, and if you have any, we're going to be voting on that March 20th, the full council. If there's any comments or concerns that you have, I hope that you'll contact me. With that, I yield. Thanks.
Ms. Bluestein.
Yes, I want to just make the Ward 2 homeowners aware. I'm going to put together a meeting probably the middle of next month. I want you to have the very latest information on where your traffic jams are going to be. Or, seriously, I think we've lived through so much congestion right now that it'll be a relief to have the park open. So I'm going to put together something. I'll let you know as soon as possible the date and the time and where. So thank you very much.
Mr. Welch.
Very short report. Just wanted all of the Ward 4 residents and all of the city residents to take a look at the linear park along Concord Road. It seems to be coming along pretty well. Looks like our Public Works Department is doing a great job.
Ms. Wilkinson.
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Stoner.
No report.
Mr. Fennell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to speak to those people who came out tonight with the anticipation of a Camp Highland town hall feedback, at least public input session. The applicant has requested that be delayed until March 20th, and we did that tonight, granted them that extension. This has been nearly a year in the making. I've held 2 town hall meetings. The Planning and Zoning Board has had it up for consideration for many months and finally passed a revised version of the plan. And there are a lot of stipulations. There are a lot of unanswered questions that some people may have. I'm more than happy to continue to field questions and comments, as I have been, through email and other methods of delivery. I will actually put out a more detailed missive prior to the March 20th meeting to make sure that the answers to the questions that many have raised can be properly contextually seen all in one place prior to that meeting. But I think the staff and the Planning and Zoning Board have done a great job. The neighborhood adjacent is the remaining delay as they're getting the details worked out of an agreement on infrastructure sharing. So that is the delay at this juncture. Secondly, I just wanted to make note of the fact that I, along with the mayor and Councilmember Wilkins, attended a formality city-county relationship meeting. It's an annual requirement. We did that, and we're appreciative of the relationship that the cities and the county have. And then thirdly, I had the privilege of attending the Braves update, the task force update. We have another one coming up this week to get final details. You've seen some of the traffic plan, but we get regular updates, and hopefully, although the Braves are not in Smyrna, they're adjacent to Smyrna, and our impact is mainly as a result of others' actions, and so we're just trying to make sure that we're prepared. All of our departments are engaged and have been from the beginning so that we're properly budgeting and appropriately directing whatever there is to respond to relative to that next-door neighbor that we're going to inherit very shortly. And then finally, as the winter has avoided us for the most part this year, do, however, be aware that you need to be prepared. There is our prepared ready.gov website that allows anybody to be prepared. We'll have a spring with weather, and there are a lot of safety issues that come about, and we'd like to remind citizens to be safe. Public safety is obviously the number one concern of our citizens.
Thank you very much. And I would like to just take a moment to remind everyone that Smyrna is undergoing the comprehensive plan revision right now. It is the Smyrna 2040 process, I believe. It is called Guide Smyrna. We had a very well-attended forum last Thursday evening at Bronner Hall, and a diverse group of residents came and participated in roundtable discussions about what they would like to see happen. One thing we talked about a lot during the vision plan is that the vision plan was not a land use plan. This is a land use plan, so if you have any thoughts or opinions, things you would like to see with regard to how Smyrna approaches land use over the next several decades, I highly recommend that you visit the guidesmyrna.com website, GUIDESMYRNA.com website, and you can take an online survey there. if you can always participate in person. There will have representatives at the Jonquil Festival. When Food Truck Tuesdays start up, I'm sure they'll be present there. But in the meantime, go to the website guidesmyrna.com and you can participate and make sure that your voice is heard in the comprehensive plan update. And I have nothing more to report. There are no show cause hearings tonight. The next item on the agenda is citizen input, and we have several folks. Alex Backery has signed up for 3 minutes. He lives on Shawnee Trail. His topic is comments.
I received a copy of a letter that the city administrator sent out to 3 of the council stating that our no parking signs that we've had up for 34 years, the city has decided that they are no longer needed on our street. I want to stress that not one person in the city asked any of the residents of the street or the area any input on how they felt about them removing the signs. And then I find out it had to go before the council. No one from the city obviously consulted the city attorney on the proper procedure that it has to be voted on by the full council. The signs were all removed improperly, and I find that appalling. Then it comes up in the city hall meeting on the consent agenda. This is important. It shouldn't have been on the consent agenda. If the city had it on city business with notice, people would have come, like myself, and at least spoke to you for 5 minutes on why the signs have been up as a safety reason for the last 34 years. We, thank God it was tabled till further review. Then I find out that you're going to hold a meeting for the association in our subdivision at a private home. The association didn't take down the signs, the city did. It should have been held at Bronner or the city hall. I've talked to 5 people since last Thursday night. None of them knew about that meeting last Thursday night. 2 others had the attitude, the city's already decided, so it's a waste of our time to go. Again, the city could have put a sign on both entrances and announced a date and time at Bronner or City Hall to have the meeting. And let the people come like myself. I called the RSVP, by the way, and I was told since I didn't pay my dues, I could not attend. 2 other people that I know attended it are not members, and they said nothing to them. I was clearly discriminated against. And lastly, your meeting last Thursday night was the same night as that meeting. You should have had it on another night where the council could go and see what the people are saying. You could not do that because you had your conflict with your meeting. And that, to me, the council was denied listening to the people firsthand of what they're saying. And when you did have it on the consent agenda for that meeting, half these council probably have never been on a street to have an objective vote. So I don't understand how this has been handled. And the
Your time is up, sir.
Yeah, and the ineptness of the city council handling this problem reflects on the city government.
All right, next we have Howard Martin from Lee Street. Mr. Martin, I think he has left. I think that's probably related to the earlier public hearing. We have Raquel Rogers from Napa Valley. You here, Ms. Rogers? All right, now we have Philip Howard from Ventura Place.
Good evening. Earlier, this council voted to remove Howard's record service from the city touring rotation at the request of the police department. The police chief has cited 7 deficiencies against my company for the basis of this recommendations. I officially learned of these concerns in a letter I received just last Monday, informing me my service was no longer needed. Does this council know that neither the chief nor anyone from the chief's office ever approached me about correcting any such deficiencies? And do these occurrences, which I prefer to call them, really warrant such harsh action? In no way am I trying to dismiss the seriousness of these concerns. And when given the opportunity, I would have corrected any deficiencies that had been found. But some of the information that you've received is both flawed and incomplete. You have been given partial truths, while certain facts have been withheld and incorrect statements have been made. How can this council be expected to make an informed decision without both complete and accurate information? For example, did you know that for several years now, it's been common practice that if a record service was unable to respond to a particular call in a timely manner, for whatever reason, that they would defer to the other service in the interest of serving the public? Neither us nor Barra need to want to pass on a call since it's our livelihood, but the towing business can be very unpredictable, especially during inclement weather and peak traffic periods. The objective here has always been to get a tow truck to the scene, regardless of whose name was on the side of the truck. But suddenly this has become an issue. And despite what the council has been told, there have been plenty of occasions that Howard's Record Service has responded to calls meant for Barrows. That was not disclosed to this council. The city's purchasing department surprised us with a low bid package by mail September the 12th, 2016, with a deadline for response less than 72 hours later. No advance notice. What was the rush? What was so serious that immediate action of this nature needed to be taken? Was the council informed that along the way, the RFQ, part of the requirement was to require towers to have a 30-ton heavy-duty wrecker? Why was that in there? Because they knew I only had two 20-ton heavy-duty wreckers, which has incidentally done the job for 40 years, including towing city garbage trucks and fire trucks with no problem. But now those trucks would have been deemed insufficient. Did the council know that there was also a provision to require all tow companies to be located inside the city limits, a provision that I am agreeing to? But you see, there were some in the police department who thought that my Mableton storage facility was actually outside the city limits, when in fact, 3 years later, it had been, 3 years previous, it had been annexed by the city. Was the council informed the day after I received the RFQ that I met with the police department officials asking for a roundtable workshop so that I'd be able to ask about why these changes were necessary, and that a few days later, my request was to be granted, only to be later denied, and all my communication with the police department was cut off. No phone calls, no emails, no visits. I was not even allowed to even state my case. And then these 7 deficiencies come to my attention, and I can't even defend them. They were brought to you, and I was never given any opportunity to address them in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And did you also know that after my last conversation with the police department, where I was told that a decision had probably already been made, that the city council was informed that I had told the police department that that we had purchased a 35-ton heavy-duty truck that cost over $350,000. That we also spent over $10,000 on computers, phones, and security camera equipment so that my Ventura office location could be brought up to par to the police department's requirements. And did you know these 7 deficiencies? I know I don't have time. I'm out of time, but I want you to understand these 7 deficiencies. Are you aware that 2 of them involved Howard's deferring calls to Barrow? And as I mentioned before, that was a common practice until recently, for the past 20 years. Did you also know that we have received over 717 calls since the July the 1st of last year, and we only deferred 2 of those calls to Barrow? That's over a 99.75% acceptance rate. Have you also heard that...
Sir, you're about 2 minutes over your time now.
Ma'am, I serviced the city for 40 years. I think I deserve about 2 minutes of my time.
And I've given you an additional 2 minutes.
Okay. I'm almost done. If you could indulge me, I'd appreciate it. Howard has received, as I said, over 717 calls, only deferring 2 at this time. How many calls have Barrow deferred during this time? I can promise you there have been some. Another deficiency that was cited was one of my employees had a driver's license suspended. Were you also informed that this was an administrative suspension that was corrected the very next day because of a mistake that was done at the State Department of Motor Vehicle Services? In conjunction with that event, the same driver was accused of damaging a police car while towing it. When I contacted Mark Brew at the Public Works the next morning to offer to make full repairs, he told me there was no damage and that his mechanic had simply pushed out the area and that nothing would be required further. Can somebody explain to me how this can escalate into a deficiency? And then last, I will touch on one more. There was an incident involving a driver who was impounding a vehicle who was hauling ice cream. The driver made a casual comment to the officer, maybe he'd like to get an ice cream cone. The officer may have taken his comment out of context. But can somebody please explain to me how this can be characterized as a deficiency? Isn't this a bit of a stretch? There's not even any ice cream missing. So let me see if I understand this correctly, council. This council has been told that by removing my 15 trucks, that you are somehow going to create a more desirable situation in the city to mitigate traffic? Can you imagine the traffic around the new stadium? Any game day at rush hour, after an afternoon rain shower? Is this how we're going to welcome Braves fans to Smyrna? And what if the scrutiny was applied to Barrows? What are their response times? What had causes he deferred? And is this council aware that he has an active business partner and a written agreement with Marietta Wrecker Service to provide subcontract work for him? So what, are you going to boot me out to bring them in? Is that the intent here?
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, you can bring the police in if you like. I got one more comment to say. Obviously, they're here.
Sir,
if you feel like...
You have had 3 minutes. You have had 4.5 additional minutes. You have had ample time. Now, your wife has signed up to speak next. If you would like to give your sheet of paper to her, she can have her 3 minutes.
She says she's about to throw up the thought of speaking to this crowd.
I'm going to give you 20 more seconds.
Let me guarantee you that one thing that's going to come, once you put the big picture of all the pieces of this puzzle together, it becomes real clear there's a hidden agenda here. The intent was never to really resolve any issues. The next thing you're going to see about towing is going to be a 20 to 50% increase in the rates. And you will see that soon. Mark my words. Thank you.
Next, we do have Becky Howard. Ms. Howard, would you like to speak? All right. And the next is Kyle Kirkman, and I believe he already spoke. He lives on Woodland Trace. So at this time, we have no further public comment. There are no further items of the agenda. On the agenda, I declare this meeting adjourned at 8:52 p.m.
Mr. Graves.
How are you?
Welcome.
Alive.